Metallica are a crappy band, and here are a few reasons why. First off, we'll start with the present, because it's the easiest, and existentially, focusing on the present state of Metallica is most important. And, going by that logic, we have to look at Metallica's last album, Saint Anger. Now, I don't even need to explain to most people why Saint Anger is an abomination. Even some of Metallica's most die-hard fans admit that it's a piece of shit. Honestly, the riffs sound derivative of some third-rate Slipknot cover band. The production is bad, the snare is bad, the drumming is average at best, the vocals are pathetic, the lyrics sound like the ramblings of some angst-ridden 12-year-old girl, and it's repetitive and pro-tooled to death. Even James Hetfield admitted that Saint Anger was a statement that didn't work, and he was actually right. They don't even defend the album anymore. They don't even play songs off of it anymore. They pretty much passively, non-directly admit that Saint Anger is a piece of crap. And to further that, their live performances are also crappy. The weakest link is easily Lars Ulrich, who really never was what you would call a drumming virtuoso. Seriously, he is sloppy as hell on his own songs, his own intermediate at best songs that he's been playing for what, over 2 decades? That's honestly pathetic. I could play every Metallica song better than Lars can, and I've only been playing for less than 2 years. That, my friends, is freaking sad. And Kirk. Now, I am not a guitar player. I don't know much about guitars or any of that nonsense. But I know what I hear. And when I listen to live Metallica performances over these last 5 years or so, it's pretty obvious that Kirk is either not interested or needs to practice. Just as Lars does. Actually, the hell with Lars. He doesn't need to practice. He needs to be replaced, period. He doesn't even have any interest in this instrument. If he did, he would be in shape already. But apparently, he just doesn't give a damn. Which is why I say that letting Joey Jordison or Dave Lombardo fill in for him is sadly one of the best decisions I say Metallica has made this past decade musically. And James sounds like a dying redneck when he sings live. His rhythm guitar playing still sounds solid, and Rob Trujillo, whatever, I don't know or care about him, but honestly, Metallica are a crappy live act, and what's more, their set lists are incredibly predictable. But of course, it's easy to pick on this past decade of Metallica because it's been pretty obvious that they are a joke by now. But what about their music throughout their entire career? I'll start off at the beginning with Kill 'Em All. Now, a lot of people credit Kill 'Em All as being the birth of thrash. Now, I don't know or care what constitutes thrash enough for Metallica to be credited as its creator, but looking at bands like Diamond Head, Venom, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, listening to bands like those, and then listening to Kill 'Em All back to back, it's pretty clear that Metallica were very derivative of those bands. Oh yes, listening to Diamond Head's Lightning to the Nations, you could clearly tell that that was probably Hetfield and Ulrich's riff Bible when it came to writing music for Kill 'Em All. And the brash intensity of bands like Venom and Motorhead. Really, Metallica were never that original. I'm not even gonna say that they're a copycat of anybody, but to be honest, they've always been pretty guilty of just gathering influences from all these different bands compiling it together and then watering it down. And to add to that, Lars Ulrich even said himself that Venom was the band that pretty much created thrash. Yes, that's right, Lars said that. And if you don't believe me, read, do your research. But honestly, Kill 'Em All is more or less a dumbed down version of the early punk, thrash, new wave of British heavy metal material. And for Ride the Lightning, things were pretty decent there, honestly. But still, the musicianship on Lars's end isn't that great compared to many other bands. And really, I suppose 80s Metallica isn't what you would call abysmal, the way post-Justice Metallica more or less is, but there's still plenty of more progressive, more challenging, more brutal bands from that time. If you don't believe me, listen to not just Slayer, but Possessed, and Nocturnus, and Head of David. Bands like those, you may not have heard of them, but I would suggest getting into them. Heck, even Testament are more brutal, and more powerful. And the same goes with Master of Puppets. Really, even in the 80s, Metallica were pretty mainstream compared to a lot of other metal bands, which is part of the reason, I would guess, why Master of Puppets became such a big hit. But really, And Justice for All is where things really took a nosedive, honestly. I've never heard a more pathetically calculated attempt at trying to be challenging and technical than And Justice for All. Even Saint Anger, although fundamentally a much worse album, isn't as clearly a conscious effort to be complex and yet still fail miserably like Justice. Really, the songs aren't complex. You want complexity, listen to a Dream Theater album or a Nocturnus album. Really, Justice for All is derivative at best. It's stuffy, it's 4/4, it still has average drumming. It's really average at best, and it's dry, and it's really forced. Even the band admits that it's forced. And you could tell when even the band admits it's a piece of crap that something's going down. But the shit really hits the fan, starting with the Black Album. I could easily say that the Black Album is probably the worst album Metallica have made. Even compared to Saint Anger. At least Saint Anger had a certain level of uniqueness and dynamic. Black is just so predictable, so calculated, so sterile. It's like a metal album for retards. Something that could be easily digested by the public, which is really a big reason why it sold the way it did. Now, I'm not calling all Black Album fans retards, nor am I saying that it's inherently bad to incorporate pop sensibilities into music. But honestly, most people in this world are stupid, and Metallica's Black Album was clearly a mainstream attempt. So you could tell it's going to attract a big flock of lemmings to it. Load and Reload were just a mess. Seriously, they are wildly inconsistent. The songs are more run-of-the-mill than ever. Even James admitted in Some Kind of Monster that a lot of them were really just whipped into shape. So he even admitted that a lot of songs on there are filler, and the band barely even acknowledges that time period anymore. And once again, they're being very derivative of alternative bands like Soundgarden, and also Corrosion of Conformity. Yeah, that's a new one. And they're still being incredibly predictable, mainstream, and safe and boring.